I'm Michelle Graves, your host on today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm glad to have you here. Now, at The Power of Money, we are interested in three things happening. First, we want you to get the necessary education so that you and your family can make the decisions that will impact positively on you in your financial life. The second thing is that you be empowered to prosper. I only want the best for you. And you can only get that if you have education and then the drive to make it happen. And the third thing that is so important to me is that you recognize that life is more than a journey and that you be energized so that you can begin to participate in the truly joyous experience of living. So, here's to empowerment. Here's to education, and here's to energy. I'm Michelle Graves, your host, Power of Money, and here we go. And here we go on today's segment of The Power of Money. Again, I'm your host, Michelle Graves, the Money Lady. Been doing this show for almost, believe it or not, 30 years. And yeah, that's a long time. And for those of you that have been my faithful viewers over the years, you know I'm always willing to push it to some things that you need to know about, even if you don't understand. At least you have an understanding. Today is no exception. In fact, I am so honored today to have this remarkable woman on my show. And I was willing to jump through some hoops to make sure that I could accommodate her schedule, because what she's been doing is so impactful on our communities and on our lives. And so I am excited about having her as my guest. And for the next hour, we will be talking about a subject that many of you may feel uncomfortable with, but I'm not, because it's all a part of life. And it's a part of dealing with it with the necessary resources and information so that, again, you can be empowered, because it may very well come and sit on your doorstep and look at you. So I'm just giving you kind of a heads up before we get into this show. Full steam ahead. My guest today is Stacie Johnson. She is involved and has been involved for over a decade in prison ministry, connecting families, connecting inmates, and dealing with all of the problems that come from people that are incarcerated. It does affect the family. It does affect the community. It does affect all of us. You cannot ignore that. Yeah. So I wanted to get into this subject today, and I don't want to jump the gun, but I really do want to, in the future, have a segment where we go into one of her facilities and talk to the men and get a perspective on how they're coping. To be a male or female incarcerated is devastating. Yes. The loss of personal freedom. Yes. Devastating. So I'm not going to steal her thunder. I'm just going to tell you that this is where we are today. And I'm also going to encourage you, if you have questions after you view the show, whether it's on regular television or on YouTube, to feel comfortable, as always, giving me a call. I'll be happy to refer you on to her, or you can call her direct. But anyway, I'm shifting now, and we're going to get on into this interview. Again, I'm honored and delighted that you've given up some time to listen and to learn about this vital subject today.
Thank you so much, Michelle, for inviting me to your show.
I'm delighted.
I'm excited to be able to be talking about incarceration and the families. Yes. That's my baby. Where do you want me to start?
You start wherever you want, because you are the expert. I am not. Let's start by talking about yourself, who you are.
Okay, so I'm gonna go all the way back to the beginning.
That's fine.
My husband did almost 22 years in the state penitentiary. He was one of those men that went in as a teenager, young adult in his 20s, and he did the first 11 or 12 years, and then he got out. And there was no rehabilitation. Of course, he lasted about 2 or 3 years on the outside in the community, and then he recidivated and went back for 10 more. His journey during the last 10, that's where I met him while he was in prison, and I married him while he was incarcerated. I can say that marrying him in prison was God, because I wasn't looking for a husband. I did not go in looking for a husband. It was one of those things that happened that I had to question myself. I had to question my belief system, but I knew that it was God that told me that this was my soulmate, this was my husband. So during that span of being married to someone that was incarcerated, I learned the hard way that there wasn't any resources out in the community for people like me. And when I say people like me, those women that decide to marry someone that's incarcerated, or the mother that has a son that's incarcerated, or a sister or brother that's supporting someone. When I say resources, I had to walk through this process by myself. It was times where I needed per se counseling, someone to help me understand, how do I deal with understanding the prison system? How do I deal with loving from a distance? How do I be a wife when your husband is incarcerated and you have all the other barriers in between that doesn't classify as a healthy relationship? How do I maintain that or get that healthy relationship while this person is in prison? So we didn't have those things. So I remember one time that they had a marriage seminar up at the prison.
Oh my goodness! Okay.
And it was really, really nice. But the only thing that was wrong, I couldn't relate to the people that were teaching the marriage seminar. The man had never been in prison. The woman didn't know what it was like after you get that last count and that last hug, and you have to drive home, and you can't take that person with you. And my heart just melted, because I wanted to connect with what they were saying, but I really couldn't, because you don't know what it's like to leave that person behind. And that's when the Lord told me that this was going to be my ministry, to come behind bars and to make a difference and to make a change. And through the 10 years, that's when the program was created, called the Family is First Project.
The Family is First
Project.
Okay.
It started out original for couples that were behind bars that wanted to have or try to find some normalcy to an abnormal situation to help the relationship get mended. But I realized that was just more than wives and girlfriends that were supporting these men behind bars. It was grandmothers, it was sisters, it was brothers. And so the program expanded. We started out with 10 families, and now we are expanded to like 30, 35 families.
Really? And
Yes,
that
ma'am.
that one institution, or is this in other institutions?
We started out at Warren Correctional Institution, and we've been there for.
And that's in Ohio.
That's
for
in
those
Ohio.
of you that are
it's on Ohio, and we've been there for 10 years. This is actually our 10th year.
10th year at Warren Correctional.
At Warren Correctional Institution. Yay! I'm so happy.
That is amazing.
So now the door has opened. So now we're at London Correctional Institution.
Okay, I know where London is.
And now we're at North Central Correctional Institution.
Okay.
So we are in 3 prisons this year, but what the program was designed to do was reunify families with that person that's incarcerated, because it's so necessary to bridge that gap, the communication gap. We go in and we teach basic life skills, but we get a little deeper into it. We talk about anger management.
Okay.
We teach budgeting classes.
Really? For a gentleman that's incarcerated? Oh my goodness.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Because people don't realize that if the family is supporting that person is in prison, it's so easy to make that person a part of your bills. Or you feel obligated to send a certain amount of money.
Okay.
So that goes into the family budget.
That is exactly right.
So you think about it, if a person is doing 15 years and you're sending in $230 a month for 15 years, that can really add up.
That's a house note.
Yes, ma'am. So we teach budgeting classes, and we teach the men how to budget their money. We're not telling the families not to support, but use wisdom when you support your loved ones that are incarcerated, because you don't have to go broke in the process.
Okay. May I ask, just as a question on this budgeting, because as the lady that does money, my question is, what is a level of expectation by the person incarcerated for his family or her family to provide consistent financial support for them?
What's the level of expectation
yes.
of the person in prison? The expectation for some, not all, the expectation for some is high.
Really?
It is almost a demand.
That you take care of me.
That you take care of me, that you have to do this, that this is what that's expected of you. Because I'm in this situation and I'm trying to survive. What the program does, we understand, because we understand that behavior doesn't change until we change the mindset.
Totally agree.
And you change the mindset by information.
Okay.
So we come in and we teach and we train and we talk about budgeting. A lot of times the demand is high because the person that's incarcerated has no clue what's going on in the family's life, what they have to deal with, because there's a communication gap. So we open up the lines of communication so the families understand what the guys are going through. And then on the flip side, the guys get an understanding of what they're putting their families through. And so when they get that understanding, they're not so quick to say, you're obligated to send $100, you're obligated to do this. They look at it now like, whatever you send me is a blessing.
It's a blessing for me.
It's a blessing for me. And I have to cherish the fact that you're still coming up and you're still sending me money, because you are a blessing in my life. It's not a demand that you have to do it.
That's powerful. Well, let's continue. So we deal with the finances. What else do you cover?
We deal with anger management.
Oh my God, it's got to be a big one. It's got to be a big one.
We deal with anger management, and not just the men being angry because of what they done or where they are, the families being angry. You left me. I didn't think that I was a good enough mother. I didn't think that I was a good enough father. I let you down in some way. So we open up the lines of communication and deal with that anger. And we realize that some family members don't come up because of that
anger.
Because
they will not come.
They won't come. But then after they hear the testimonies of others and they see that they're not alone in how they feel, that breaks something in them, and then that allows them to have some forgiveness with themselves. That this was their choice of what they decided to do. I can't hold the burden of your crime. And then they're able to move on and have a relationship.
That's very powerful. How are you able to cut into that?
By telling my own testimony. I learned that being transparent is the key. I'm not ashamed of anything that I went through myself. When my husband was incarcerated, I was real green to the prison system, so I made a lot of mistakes because there was nobody out there willing to coach me or teach me and say, you know, hey girl, you don't have to send all this money, you don't have to go into a state of depression, you don't have to be ashamed of your choices. You know, I had nobody to tell me that, so I learned through some hard knocks, some ups and downs, how this thing, well, not how this thing should be, but there's a way to do it in a healthier way without losing your money, without losing your mind, without being unhealthy, because I watched a lot of women get sick, develop sugar diabetes, high blood
stress,
the whole stress of it.
Yes. So in your particular situation, you are really the poster woman for this whole family first project, starting with yourself.
It started.
And your own. Now, did you have children prior to marrying him?
Yes. I had 3 children from a previous marriage, but they were all teenagers. When we got married. And then,
did they have issues around that?
I was real honest with my kids in the beginning, and I think that's most important for women that do this. Be honest with your children when you make your choices. I even took them up to meet him.
Oh, really?
We went up on visits, so I was real open and honest with them, and he got to meet them and see what type of man that he was and everything. So that made it really, really easy. And you know, they love me, and I always taught my kids, you know, you love people for who they are. So you don't pass judgment or anything like that.
You do not.
So it was that part was fairly easy.
So what was the challenge? The children, you've got children, they're teenagers. That's a crazy period anyway when they're those hormones, and they're good with him. What other challenges did you face?
The challenges were dealing with being alone for 10 years.
Yes.
One of the main challenges were dealing with the shame factor.
Okay. The shame of his?
The shame of his crime.
Okay.
And not being able to express myself like I wanted to, not being able to share my feelings and my emotions as a young wife, as a mother, as somebody going through the process. The shame factor in our society, you know, I was categorized and put in this category with women to say, oh, she must have been real needy to go get a husband, or she must have been really thirsty, or she's really insecure, or she's suffering from depression, or she needed her mind examined to go into a correctional facility and find a husband or marry somebody in there. It's nothing good that comes out of prison. And I've heard it all.
I'm sure you have heard it all.
And from that stemmed going into a deep level of shame, to the point that I was literally hiding my relationship.
With your husband?
Yeah, I started telling little stories to make it sound good for other people. I would wear at that time I was a hairdresser, and I would wear, I would wear the wedding ring and everything.
Yes.
And tell people I got married. They said, well, we never seen your husband, so where is he? I said, oh, he drives the bus. He's out of town. He's a bus driver, which was true because he drove the van around the prison yard.
Okay, okay,
And he wasn't
okay.
But I didn't feel comfortable sharing myself, sharing my testimony, sharing a part that inwardly I was proud of, and I love my husband, but publicly, I couldn't deal with the backlash. I couldn't deal with the image that people gave me. So that shame, they almost made me feel like I was the one that committed the crime.
You know, I find this so very, very interesting, particularly given the chaos and bizarre human behavior that we are now experiencing in the United States of America. I don't know how anybody, female especially, when you look at the dysfunctionality of non-prison related relationships.
But when you mention the word prison, people got some stuff.
Well, what stuff?
People have some stuff in their hearts about prison that these men will never change. These men, they're doing nothing but laying around playing basketball. They watch these shows and they're doing nothing but lift weights. They're doing, these men are a menace to society. When we get those images in our heads and you say, well, my husband is in prison, or I married somebody that's in prison, that's the first image that you see. And then you see your daughter or your friend say, oh, I married someone in prison, you must be out of your mind. Why did you do that? And it just goes on from there. But what they don't see is the positive things that are happening behind bars that I love to highlight. They don't see the men changing. They don't see men that had a high security level never get in trouble again and apply themselves and get their GED and go on and get licensed in holoculture, and their security clearance drops and then they go to lower minimum prisons. They don't see men in Toastmasters that can speak better than some people on the street. They don't see the artists. They don't see the psalmists that come out of the correctional institution. These things are not highlighted, but our program would love to highlight those men that have worked so hard to make a change, but nobody's paying attention.
You know what? What you've just said is so powerful, Stacie, because I'm going to tell you, in our society, I'm going to make a lot of y'all mad right now. Here we go. Yeah, here Michelle goes. It is definitely a race and class phenomena. Rich guys don't go to the penitentiary.
Yeah, that's true.
No, we just went through 2008 where banks ravaged our mortgage industry, where bankers stole billions, and nobody went to jail. Nobody served time, and in fact the government bailed them out and told them, you know, now behave yourselves, which of course they have not done, so here we go again. But it seems to me that there seems to be a misconception of the whole issue of criminality. And I say this because now that marijuana is legal, are you willing to release all those men that they arrested for selling marijuana?
No, ma'am.
No, I'm like, now it's legal, so what are you going to do with the businessmen, and I have to call it the way it is, the businessmen, the drug dealers, that were incarcerated for selling that drug, and now it's legal. And they are still going to be stuck in that system, correct?
Correct.
Even though that particular product is now legal.
It's a never-ending battle.
It's a never-ending battle.
It's a
so
never-ending
how
battle.
do we, and you know, my real passion is, because of the society we're in today and the transition we're going through, is can these men identify business opportunities for themselves so that they can go out here and be productive. For example, the issue of finding a good automobile mechanic is like crossing the Mojave Desert today. Where do you find a good mechanic that can fix your car, or somebody that can do electrical, or somebody that can cut lawns?
In our program, we have a segment where we talk about goals and vision. And my favorite saying is, like Shakespeare, to thine own self be true.
Be true, correct.
Until you know who you are and whose you belong to, you're going to be caught up in that stigma of what society says an inmate is supposed to look like and supposed to be. But we teach that even though you're locked up, you don't have to be locked up. So you can be free even though you're in a correctional institution, but you can still be taught how to dream again, how to have a vision, how to have goals, how to implement those goals. What do you want to be when you see yourself out of here? And it was phenomenal. We had some men that took horticulture class. And they want a lawn care service. We have some men that want to go into public speaking. So they're in Toastmasters. These are the things that need to be highlighted. Yes, they did the crime. Yes, they made the mistakes, but I believe
they're doing the time.
I believe that a person should have the opportunity to change, as my husband Frank Johnson did when he got out.
What did he do?
It was somebody that trusted his ability to say, hey, this person is trying to have a better life. This person wants to make a difference. I'm going to give him a chance, and I'm going to hire him. He was one of the ones that couldn't get a job at McDonald's. He couldn't get a job at Burger King because of his felony. So he had to know somebody that gave him an opportunity, and he's been there for the last 11 years. He's an independent contractor. He remodels homes and everything, and now he's like the manager because he has his own crew. But somebody had to give him that opportunity to say, hey, I see this person has really tried over the course of the years that he has spent in prison, and he has tried. Let me give him a chance to see. And that's what we need in our communities, those people that are willing to open up their businesses and say, hey, let me help this person walk through the second half of their process.
Do you think your husband will ever step out and just do his own thing?
One day, yeah.
Because I cannot see, if he is motivated and goal focused, he's going to want his own thing. Because that's true freedom. Once you get your own thing.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh no, I tell people, you work a 9 to 5 now and you're retired. What are you going to do?
Yes, ma'am.
Is your 9 to 5 going to be looking at television?
Right.
If you're 9 to 5 right now and it's looking at me, that's okay. But I think that is absolutely amazing. So what are the challenges that families are facing?
Well, the challenges that families are facing is, like I said, the budgeting issue, the shame factor. A lot of women like myself lose themselves in being the caregiver.
Okay.
Because that's what you turn into. You turn into being the caregiver. You are the financial supporter of that person.
Okay.
You are the emotional support.
Okay.
You're the spiritual support. You are the one that if they're having a bad day and they call, you have to be Miss Sunshine because you don't want to, you know, you're that
Right.
rock. You're
Right.
that person. And
Right.
a lot of times, you know, us women, when we are
Ooh-wee.
superwoman to everybody,
That's too much.
we tend to forget about ourselves.
Right.
And this was another burden that was on my heart a year ago. Just crying out for those that could not get the program. So I was, you know, the Lord put on my heart to write a book, and I want to talk about that a little bit.
Okay, I'd like to show the book. Can we zoom in and let?
It's called While You Wait. This is my personal testimony of how I endured the process of incarceration.
Okay.
And I get real. I get transparent. I talk about the money issue. I didn't have a money person in my life to teach me how to budget my money. I was to the point that I was a hairdresser, cash on hand, a lot of money flow were coming in, sending money into the prison, paying the bills. But when the economy fell, and I can say it like I say it to them, when money get funny and change gets strange, and now I look up and the clientele is not there, I didn't use the wisdom to put away for a rainy day. So I had to end up filing bankruptcy. My car got repoed. I couldn't go to prison and visit. And then we had to get some sense and learn how to budget.
Exactly. And you know
Yes,
what?
ma'am.
I respect your transparency.
Yes, ma'am.
Because 2008 was real.
Yeah.
And 9/11 was real.
Yeah.
And people didn't have any money.
It was around that time.
I know it was,
It was around that
because
time.
I'm just telling you, the economy blew.
Yeah.
And people did not have resources. They didn't have money for a rainy day, and it got real crazy. It got real crazy.
So in the book, what I talk about is how I found myself again through the Word of God. Yes, I was a minister then. I'm a minister now. Me and my husband are apostles. We oversee different ministries. We're doing well. He's been out now 11 years.
Oh my
So
gosh.
we celebrated January, his 11th year anniversary being home, and he's doing really well. We're doing some things in ministry, but I write how when he was incarcerated, how I had to find me again in spite of everything that was going on, everything that I took on, being the caregiver, how to pour back into myself using the Word of God, how to encourage myself, how to create goals. I went back to school. I educated myself on corrections. So I got my bachelor's in criminal justice, and the Lord told me go further. Then I got my master's in human services.
Oh my God, may I shake your hand?
Thank you. Thank
That's
you.
a push.
Yeah. So
That's a push. Your husband was incarcerated and you were doing this?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's a push.
Yeah. So
And children?
yes, and children.
Oh, that's a push.
And a job.
And a job. That's a push.
And a job.
Yes,
it was,
that's a push.
And I had to learn how to pour back into me. And then as I poured into myself, I would pour into him. And we learned how to communicate. And as I was getting educated, I was feeding him what I was learning, and it was just a cycle that was going
Oh my goodness, yes.
back and forth. And the Lord told me, this is what I want you to do when he comes home, because now you have the key to what families are missing. They're missing somebody to give them that push. Like if this is what you decide to do, and you want to love somebody in prison, or if that's your journey, it's a way to do it in a healthier way without losing everything. Without losing everything. There are many women out there that feel like they're by themselves.
Okay.
Like you feel to the point like you're an island, because I couldn't get up in church and tell my testimony. I couldn't do that because how I would be looked upon. Let's be real.
Oh, Stacie, this is why the church has got to step its game up.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm just being real. Fakery ain't working.
Yes, ma'am.
Because you know what people are doing? People are leaving.
Yeah.
They haven't left Jesus, but they leaving that mess. because it's fake.
We have to understand that there are wounded people in the congregation, and
I would have to say more wounded people than healthy people, because life will kick your butt.
And to hold on to something, or to hold on to the bitterness and the shame and the unforgiveness, and go to a place where you can't be honest. You can't. You can't tell your testimony. There's nobody there that you feel that you could connect to. But I realized when I started opening up my mouth, there were hundreds of people sitting in the congregation going through the same thing. If it wasn't a wife, it was a mother. If it wasn't a mother, it was a grandmother. If it wasn't a grandmother, it was a father, it was a brother. So I wasn't the only one that felt alone. So when I get up and tell my testimony, these people don't feel alone. They're like, oh, there is other people out here. The wonderful thing.
That is powerful.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm telling you, when you can say, I know what you are feeling.
Yes.
Because the rock dropped on my head too.
Yes.
And out of all that pain, God lifted me.
Yeah.
That is something that resonates.
Yeah.
And that is woefully absent.
Yes.
I mean, I just have to be open about, because as a banker, at one point, I was executive vice president of bank. So I knew all the money, who had money, who didn't have money, who was overdrawing, who was drafting. I mean, because you pull up the account, you pull up all their information, you look at average balances. And I realized none of these people had no money. And that's probably why they were not real cool about me saying a whole lot to them, because they figured, oh, she know I don't have no money. And I'm like, but you don't have any money. And it's okay if you can be real about where you are, then we can start with that.
Right, right.
If you can be real, which is, I'm broke. And where do I go from here? How do I get around this? And in your particular case, because of the burdens of dealing with your husband's situation and what you felt, and it may be valid, because people are just nuts and hypocritical. They're going to judge you. It's like Jesus said, you're going to talk about the splinter in their eye when you got a log in yours.
Right, right.
I mean, what are you going to say to that? Look at you. I mean, nobody can say life has been right, because life is not designed to be right.
Life is going to happen.
It's going to happen.
You can't say how life is going to happen or how it's going to hit you. All you know is you have to have the coping skills to recover.
And that's something that you deal with this program as well?
It's giving them the coping skills to recover. We have a lot of people in our program that are doing life sentences. So
no hope of coming out?
I wouldn't say no hope of coming out.
What have they done that's so horrible that you're gone for the rest of your life?
One thing I don't get into is the sentences.
Okay,
so I try not to focus on their sentence and their crime. I just know that when a person has done life, they need hope, just like the person that's doing 10 years or like the person that's doing 5 years. But the families need hope. Okay. Because you lose a lot in those years that you're missing.
Oh, God.
You miss a lot. People get older. People pass away. People move on. You miss a lot. So you instill hope in them, and hope is still in educating, giving them the coping skills to go year by year without losing their mind. To have the men understand, if you never ever have a voice on the street, you can have a voice in here. So if they say you're doing life, okay, well, you learn how to have a voice in here, so when the young ones come in and when they go home, they can be your voice. Keep them from coming back, because we have a lot of young people that are going to prison now, and we have those that are in prison trying to get out. So it's like you really don't know what it's really like until you get there. But most of our young men are doing life sentences.
Life sentences?
Life at 22, 23 years old. Yes, ma'am.
So you go to the penitentiary at 20 and you never see life again? Is that what a life sentence means?
A life sentence means
for life?
15 years, 20 years, 22 years, 30 years. I know some doing 50 years. So
you have to forgive me because I'm not naive, but that's hard for me to wrap my brain around a person gone for 50 years. What the heck? You just killed him.
You can.
Yeah.
But there's always hope.
And that's that critical
There's
piece.
always hope, because if they focus on their sentence, if they focus on the time, if they don't apply themselves, yeah, that person can die mentally, that person can die spiritually. That's why it's called the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation and Correction. It has to be some rehabilitation. And to me, rehabilitation means give them the tools that are needed so they can survive, so they can make that change. So even though this person may be doing life, they can still make a change. The mind can still be corrected. The
and
behavior
God can
still
still
change. Yes, ma'am.
God can still turn it around.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have to kind of correct my thinking, because the reality is that you may have come in there a gangster.
That's right.
But God can turn that thing around.
Turn that thing around.
And you can find yourself out of that situation because He did it.
And the phenomenal piece is now legislation and lawmakers and the powers that be understand that the families play a big role in the person's rehabilitation.
Do they?
Yes, they do.
Can you go into more depth about that?
The families are the ones that is that person's first contact.
Okay.
The families are the one, if that person gets out, they're the ones that person is coming home to. The families are the one that's walking them through that process. So now if the families are playing a big role in the rehabilitation, now they need to be in part of that role in the correctional part, the time where you're doing time. So what families first, what the prison is now allowing and accepting, to bring the families inside, and we have class together once a quarter. So
the family gets to come in.
Yes, ma'am.
Into that environment.
Yes.
And literally experience.
Yes.
Vicariously, but they're still there.
Yes.
What he's going through.
It's in the visiting room.
I understand.
And we get to have group for maybe 2 or 3 hours.
Yes.
But we talk about issues. It's not like the visiting room where you have the barrier and the table and they're on one side. No, we're sitting side by side and we're looking at each other and eat eye contact and we're communicating, and I'm telling you how I feel. I'm telling you how your prison sentence has affected me, and then on the flip side, you're telling me what you're going through on the inside, and now we're communicating and we're building a common ground and we're getting some understanding. Wow, I brought my mother to prison with me. Wow, my siblings were affected by my choices. And then the families get to see how that this is a whole nother city for them, their way of lifestyle. They get to hear that he's not just playing basketball or he's not just playing cards. He's really educating himself and trying to make a difference. So then it ends up that now things have been broken, and so now forgiveness can come in and communication is there, and now the family bond is coming back together. Even though it's inside the prison system, now that bond is being unified.
Well, family for me is everything. And I say this because the older you get, the more you begin to understand that it really is about those family relationships.
Yes.
And the power of forgiveness within the family structure, which is the recognition that an offense has been created.
Yes.
And you have the choice to say, I forgive you.
Yes.
And viewers, be aware that forgiveness on any level is going to be a challenge, because you're going up against pride.
Yes.
You're going up against what other people will think, like it really matters, like they're paying your bills today, really now. But to be able to release yourself from the bondage of anger, and unforgiveness, because unforgiveness will eat you alive.
Yes.
Both sides, wouldn't you say?
Yes, the phenomenal part was when Dad started to show up.
Oh my gosh.
When we first started, it was women.
Okay.
Women, you know, the mothers, the grandmothers.
Always the women.
Always the women. And my prayer was, where the fathers? Where the brothers? And when the fathers started to show up to the meetings inside the prison, you had, it was such a blessing to hear the fathers talk about how they felt that it was their fault. I didn't understand, even me, how the father carried the heavier burden than the mother did because of being a man. Did I not teach you enough? Did I not show you enough? That they were holding their prison sentence in their heart, like, this is my fault that you in here, and the reason why I don't come is because I can't take to see you like that, because I blame myself, because I didn't father you enough. And to have that exposed, and to have that son tell that father that it wasn't you, that this was my choice. You did everything that you could possibly do, but this was my choice or my decision, who I decided to run with, or what I decided to do had nothing to do with your father. And to see that forgiveness piece happen in front of everybody. I can say when we have our family meetings, there is not a dry eye.
Oh my goodness.
It's not a dry eye, and it helps. It helps the men in prison become human again. We had a family meeting a couple weeks at London Correctional.
Okay.
And I went up there yesterday to teach my class and to get some feedback how the men felt about the meeting. And they were telling me that listening to other people's family, even when some didn't show up, listening to the family members interact with the men, they talked about how the room felt safe. It was a safe environment to have the communication, but to hear a different side from the families and what they put their family members through. And they always looked at it like, I'm surviving this. I got to get out of here. I got to survive this. But to see I brought my mother with me, to see I pulled my sister in, to see I pulled my daddy in. Now I have to be very careful, because now I have to see what I did to my family to break it all up. So now I'm not so quick to ask for that $100. I'm not so quick to demand that you put money on the phone. I'm not so quick to demand that you send me a food box or a clothes box. Now I got to be grateful that anything that I get is a blessing outside of what I'm getting in my sentence.
Right. That is, whew. I'm sitting here. I am at a loss for words. My mind is going like tick, 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 because you are doing exactly what you should be doing.
Amen.
You are exactly where you should be, because the reality is, and these are the stats, that the United States has the highest incarceration rate in the world.
It does. It does.
I mean, 25% I was reading. I'm like, we're 5% in population, but 25% in incarceration. And then I look at all these opioids and people going to penitentiary for addictions and things they didn't even ask for.
Yes.
And they're sitting there looking at long time.
Yeah.
There has to be a reassessment and a regeneration in our culture, white and black and Latino, about what is really going on and what can we do as a family unit, because it all begins with the family.
Yes.
You were birthed into a family, and your family is going to be the ones that are going to put the dirt over your coffin.
Yes.
It's not going to be strangers. It's going to be it's going to be your family.
It's going to be family.
So what you're doing, in my opinion, is so desperately needed. And as things continue to shift, and when I say shift, as we begin to recognize that this is a family problem.
Yes.
This is not an individual problem. This is a family problem. And how families begin to address this and how they begin to bond, recognizing that Junior messed up, or why did he do this?
Yes.
And that, I'm going to be candid with you, because I know men who have been in the penitentiary, who are out here doing all kinds of work, business owners and stuff. And I have asked them, why did you do this? Because I just want to know, what would make you put a gun and rob a bank? Like I tell them, why you want to rob a bank? Because that's a federal institution.
Right.
You're going to be gone a long time.
Right.
And their response is consistently, I don't even know why I did it. I don't know why I did it.
Yeah.
And I said, but look at what happened to your family.
And at the time, they're not processing the consequences.
Is that it? They're just acting.
They're just acting. And we teach about impulse.
Okay.
Being impulsive and what that looks like, and thinking things through. Like I said, giving them the coping skills.
Okay.
How do I cope when I want to make a difference? Do I do it the right way, or do I do it the quick way? Do I be impulsive and I go over here and I get it done? But now let me teach you how to think about the consequences of your behavior, because one wrong action can be a domino effect that not only affects you, but affects your entire family. And now you look up, you're doing 10 and 15 years from that one incident of you being impulsive and not thinking it through. So what we do is, it's not just a group that we go in.
Okay.
We actually have a curriculum.
You have a curriculum?
Yes, we have a curriculum, and it's a 9-month program, and it's a working group. So they have to write essays. They have to have Q&A. We break off into small focus group sessions, and they have an opportunity to actually talk about their issues. Why did you do it? What made you act like that? Some of them don't have the answer. Some of them were trying to take care of their families.
Okay.
Some of them just got caught up with the wrong group of people. You get so many answers, but now let's talk about, why did you do that? So when and if you get out, you don't make the same mistake, because now let's talk about the consequences of your behavior. How did that affect you? How has this prison affected your family? What are you going through emotionally? What could you have possibly changed in that decision? What does that look like? And we open the door to another level of understanding by giving them the information.
Is any of these impulsive behaviors, is there a high incidence of mental illness?
You know, we are looking into that.
I have to ask that because the brain is a peculiar thing, and DNA is even more peculiar. And I have to wonder if there is not some level of mental illness on some of these acts, like bipolar. I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist, but I do know that people that have certain conditions do things that don't appear rational.
And sometimes it can be altered by...
And sometimes it can be altered.
By substance abuse.
Yeah, I think that substance abuse can be a trigger.
Plays a big key, can trigger it.
Yes.
Whether it's marijuana, whether it's alcohol.
Right.
Whether it's opioids or whatever. Whatever they could have been into, you know, altered their thinking to make them get it. At one point years ago, it was crack cocaine.
Yeah.
You know, and...
My generation, it
altered
was
the thinking patterns and made them more impulsive than what they were. So those are questions that we really need to ask.
I'm glad to know that is now on the horizon, because as I've gotten older and wiser because of life, I certainly have looked at mental illness and how it plays out in the penal system versus out here. You get caught up in something really crazy. You wind up getting sentenced, but you don't get any help for your condition. So now you're behind bars, but you still got this condition. And it plays out in the prison population because you wind up getting in fights and getting a sentence extended. And I've looked at that, and I've oftentimes wondered, has anyone really looked at what percentage of the men that are in there have psychological issues?
Now, I'm not too well versed with mental health.
I'm not either.
Inside the prison system, but I know that, and I can't speak by far for the Department of Corrections because I don't work for them.
I know that. Aren't you glad?
I'm just a volunteer. But they do have means by which they help these men.
Do they?
They have, I've been in many of them where they have mental health units.
Oh, goodness.
Mental health workers. So that is something that I know that they are aware of. And, you know, they're trying to, you know, fight that giant. But they're coming in younger. They're coming in with more issues.
Oh, my goodness,
you know,
gracious.
But I can't say there is things set up for them that are incarcerated. That have mental issues.
I was very... I was very, very concerned about that. I've been blessed in my family. We don't have anyone that's ever been incarcerated. And I think it truthfully, we are all country people, farm, rural people. Everybody had to work, everybody, the farm, everybody was very, I mean, it was just an open family situation. You didn't mess up because you didn't want the family embarrassed. I mean, not little stuff. You didn't steal because you didn't want the family upset. And so some of it is healthy, some of it probably isn't healthy because it's the family. But it has kept all of the males working and taking care of their families, every last one of them, including my own son. Very focused on staying out of that world, taking care of their families, loving their wives. And I think that certainly is something you have dealt with, which is as you look at the men and they become aware of the impact on their family. I know that's caused a change.
Oh, yes.
Because once you realize that you're tied in with them from birth to death, that's who God gave you, then things shift. I want to talk about this because in the remaining time, for those of you that are viewers, this is an awesome book. It is. And I want to encourage you. The book is $12.99. Very affordable.
Okay. And it's on eBay.
And it's on
eBay.
eBay. Is it on Amazon yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. It'll be on Amazon.
Yes.
But you want to take advantage of this, become aware. And begin to make a change. And what is your phone number?
It's 888 691 0118.
0118. And is there a email address?
Yes. The email is thefamilyisfirstproject@gmail.com. And then they can also go to our website, which is thefamilyisfirstproject.com.
Okay, well, you've got everything covered.
Yes.
But I think the key thing is that people begin to look at their own families, look at your friends, neighbors, church members. You're going to find a whole lot of people are walking this very, very painful road. And her organization offers a solution. I mean, problem identification is important. But you got to have answers. You can't sit on the sidelines saying, you know, this is terrible, this is terrible. You don't know what God's going to do. You just don't know because you're human. You don't know. So I just want to, in concluding today's show, Stacie, I want to thank you so much for coming. I want a hug.
Oh, okay.
Oh, no, I got to get a hug. This is so... This is so good. It was so worth it for me to be able to hear this. And I see you got a brochure as well. Who you are, how to contact you. And Oh my goodness. And you got a handsome husband.
Yes, thank you.
Yes, that's nice.
Yes.
I like that. I do. Got a handsome husband, beautiful wife.
And he grew up here in Dayton.
He grew up in Dayton.
He grew up in Dayton.
I like Dayton. I'm a
Yes.
Cincinnatian, but I do like Dayton. I really do. It's a nice community. And on today's segment, we're done. We're going to be ending with an excerpt from an awesome CD. It's an old CD by Citizen Cope, but he sings a song called Penitentiary, when the penitentiary's on fire.
Yes.
When people don't have to go into those kind of environments and deal with the sorrow and the pain and the devastation and the hopelessness. He talks about that. So we're going to conclude with Citizen Cope singing Penitentiary. And again, to all of you that are faithful viewers of The Power of Money, I thank you for being a part of my world today.
Yes,
I thank you for opening up to hearing this remarkable woman. She's amazing. I'm blessed to have her here. And in closing out, you have a wonderful week. Love your family.
Yes.
Okay? Love your family. If you follow me on Facebook, you know family's everything to me.
Everything.
Family. Love your family. Love God first and love your family. We're concluding today's segment. God bless you. Peace upon you. And I love you as always. You take care. Bye-bye.